Hey guys, back with another video, another review impressions video on a game I finished a few days ago now for the PC, and that's Dead Rising 3. So no physical copy to show. It's also available on the Xbox One, and this is a game I've been wanting to play for a long time. I'm actually a huge fan of the Dead Rising series, and when they announced that this was going to be exclusive to Xbox One, I was definitely a bit pissed off. It was by they said it was going to be developed by the Capcom Vancouver, previously known as Blue Castle Games, who did the second Dead Rising game, and I really liked the second Dead Rising game. I was expecting to be disappointed with it, moving from a Japanese to a Canadian developer, but that game surprised the hell out of me. I didn't like it as much as the first, but I still really enjoyed it. So yeah, this got announced to be an Xbox One exclusive. It came out, got pretty solid reviews, though you heard a lot of people say that it wasn't as good as the first two, but I still really wanted to play it, but I was never going to get an Xbox One just for Dead Rising 3. Um, but it came out for PC eventually, which was surprising to me. I wasn't actually expecting that. I guess at first I should say if you don't have an Xbox One and you were interested in this game, I will say you have to have a pretty powerful PC for this game. It's not an especially well optimized game. Like the minimum requirements are pretty crazy. And I played this game co-op with my brother, and his computer, he could only run it on the lowest possible settings, and the game looked absolutely ugly at that. If he tried to change any setting to go higher, that it would stutter, and the frame rate was garbage. I could play it on all high ultra settings or whatever, but it's you definitely need a pretty powerful PC, or else I wouldn't really even recommend getting the game. But for Xbox One owners that have kind of passed on the game, I think it's definitely worth picking up. It's a fun game. Now, I do have quite a few problems with it though, and I will agree that with most people that it's easily the weakest in the series, and there's a lot of things about it that are disappointing. It's one of those games that compared to Dead Rising 2, it takes one step forward and two steps back at all times. So in a way, it's a disappointment, but I can't deny that I had fun with the game for the 13 or so hours I put into it. I'm not the max level yet. I still need to go and get max level. I mean, there's a ton of content in this game too. Um, but I guess I'll talk about the story. And I'm not. There's no spoilers here for Dead Rising 1 or 2 if you haven't played those or this game. It does take place 10 years after Dead Rising 2, though. But you play a new character, Nick Ramos, who's kind of like a mechanic. And the game already starts with like the infection going around and zombies everywhere, and you're a part of a group of survivors, including like your boss and a few other people, and that's really all I want to say. I mean, the story is generally just do a bunch of fetch quests, and then eventually a villain comes in that I don't really want to spoil, and then there's some like connections with this game and Dead Rising 1 and 2. Some stuff's just not going to make sense if you haven't played the first two games. But I'd still think this is probably worth jumping into because I'll be honest, like Dead Rising 1 and 2 don't have particularly great storylines. I wouldn't say you really played these games for the storyline. Um, but at the same time, the first Dead Rising, I actually really enjoyed the story in that game and the main character, Frank West. Because that game just had this special Japanese charm to it, with like the dialogue and the situations you found yourself in and the story itself, like how over the top it was. And that's where Dead Rising 2 I thought was a bit disappointing because the story I thought was really generic. The main character was generic, and it didn't have that Japanese charm the original had. That was my biggest problem with the second one. And this game, they try to have some humor that I felt the second game was kind of lacking. But I don't think it really works. Like a lot of it's like fart humor and like really like I don't know. It's humor that's just not really funny to me. Like the game tries to be funny with a lot of its psychopaths, and I don't think it quite works. Um, some people actually might find it offensive. I didn't find it offensive or anything, but it just wasn't a funny game. And then when it's not being funny, it's trying to be serious, and then it's not particularly interesting when it's trying to be serious either. I do like the main character better than Chuck Green in Dead Rising 2. Nick Ramos is kind of like he's kind of like a pathetic character, and I think that makes him kind of endearing in a way. Um, just how he reacts to the situations he finds himself in is just really weird. So he's a more likable character than Chuck Green, but he's certainly no Frank West. And the supporting characters you meet through the game, including the main villain, I think are really boring. So yeah, I mean, the story and characters really didn't engage me too much, especially when most of the story is just doing random fetch quests for your group of survivors. So yeah, definitely a step down from Dead Rising. Well, maybe it's about equal of Dead Rising 2, but certainly not as good as Dead Rising 1's story or main character for sure. But again, like I said before, that's not really why you play these Dead Rising games. It's all about the gameplay, and that's where, I mean, okay, killing zombies in Dead Rising 3 is just as fun as it's always been. And one of the major improvements with this game is that there's so many more zombies on screen, and it's really hectic. Trying to get from place to place with so many zombies on you, it's crazy. And there's so many fun weapons to pick up and use. The combo weapons from Dead Rising 2 return, so you can kind of like take one type of weapon and combine it with another once you have a blueprint, and you can make these really cool weapons. There's like this, like, I don't really want to spoil the combo weapons you find, but there's so many of them. A lot of them are kind of similar to others, but one of the kind of things with this game that I did like, although it makes the game a bit easy, like I will say, like, right off the bat, like, this game is so much easier than Dead Rising 1 and 2. Number Dead Rising 2 was, it was a lot easier than the first game. Like, the first game was actually pretty hardcore. Like, it was a difficult game. They toned down the difficulty for the second one, and the third one's the difficulty is toned down even further. Like, it's a very easy game, and one of the reasons for that is because you can make combo weapons anywhere. Like, the inventory, I think, is improved the way it works, but you can actually combo weapons when you're out in the field. You don't need a workbench anymore, which I actually kind of liked that change. It was, it's just easier to create weapons, and because the map is so big in this game, it's something I think they needed to add. So yeah, you've got the combo weapons. Killing zombies is always fun. It's super gory. I love the effects. Now, it's going to be kind of hard to talk about this game a bit because Dead Rising 1, for those that haven't played it, it was an incredibly unique game. Capcom could have just made a game where you just went around in a mall killing zombies, but they had some really interesting ideas for gameplay where, like, the structure of the game revolved around, like, a time limit. You had 7 days. I think it was 7 days. It's been a while since I played Dead Rising 1 before a mysterious event happens and you fail the game. And if you ran out of time, you could replay the game with your character leveled up with all the levels you got, which was really cool. And you had side quests that you had to do at certain times, and certain characters and side quests would appear in the mall at certain times throughout the 7 days. So there was this time limit aspect to it that I really enjoyed. It made things really hectic, and it guaranteed that you weren't going to see everything on a first playthrough. There was multiple endings you could get. Leveling up was really fun. It had all these great RPG elements. You had this camera system where you had a camera where you take pictures of things to get experience points, called PP in the Dead Rising series. It was a really unique and fun game, and it was hard as shit. You had the boss battles, the psychopaths. You could find them at certain times. You could find them really early in the game. So there was a certain psychopath called Cletus in Dead Rising 1. You could find him very early in the game, but he was hard as fuck. And you really had to level up to, like, at least level 40 to be able to kill him. But it was cool how he was available early in the game. And, you can kind of strategize the playthroughs in your head right when you start the game. And the mall setting made sure that you kind of memorized the locations and how to get from point A to point B. A part of the game was really memorizing the mall and memorizing where characters were at certain times and wrapping your head around the time limits. And Dead Rising 2 kind of took that same structure, and that's what I loved about those two games. Dead Rising 3 completely removes that. You have the story mode, which you still have a time limit before a bomb sets off and destroys the city Los Perdidos, which is where this game takes place, a fictional city that's basically like LA. But the time limit in story mode never really goes down. You have as much time as you need to do all the side quests and psychopath missions as well as the main quests. Um, so the sense of urgency is gone that the first two games had, and the structure is just boring this time around. I really did miss the first two games time limit structure. But some people might actually enjoy this more. The game is far more accessible and it's far easier. Dead Rising had quite a learning curve. It was very hard in the beginning, and this game is easy from start to finish, basically. There is a nightmare mode they add, which brings back the Dead Rising time limit, but it basically, like, I tried that mode. I tried that mode in co-op with my brother, and it gives you like this 5-day time limit to complete the main quest, but it doesn't give you enough time to actually do the side quests. It's impossible to do all the side quests, and they always pop up at the same times throughout the game. Like, you're going to get a message, and your side quests will pop up. The psychopaths will pop up, and you'll always know where to go for them. There's no sense of exploration like in the first two games, where you'd find different events and characters and side quests. It's all just handed out to you. So the nightmare mode is kind of useless. It makes the zombies stronger and it's harder overall, but I don't really understand the point of it. I don't think it was really necessary. And it's like they're trying to appeal to the Dead Rising 1 and 2 fans with this mode, and it's not at all like the first two games, really. So yeah, that's probably one of the biggest disappointments for me, was the overall structure. The psychopaths, they're all easy to find because they tell you exactly where they are, and they always pop up while you're going through the main story. The psychopaths themselves are which they're boss battles basically. In the first two games, they were always interesting. It was always exciting to see what they'd be like, and they're like basically humans that have gone mad due to this zombie invasion, right? But the psychopaths in this game are just weird for the sake of being weird. They're not really even psychopaths. I don't really want to spoil them, but the fights against them, I think, are better than actually most of the fights in Dead Rising 1 and 2. Like, this game is less clunky, I think, with combat, whether you're using firearms or melee weapons. And the bosses have some, pattern-based stuff to them, and each one's very unique and different from one another. So I do think the bosses are more fun to play, but conceptually, I don't think they're as interesting this time around. Dead Rising 1 still has my favorite psychopaths for sure. But so the structure is a bit of a disappointment for me. And the missions themselves, like I said before, they're always side quests. It's always not side quests, fetch quests. And the side quests are like that too. You'll find a survivor, and they'll be like, go get me the 3 of these items that are scattered around nearby. And you go and get them, give them to the survivor, and then that's the quest. You get some experience, and that's it. Survivors work differently in this game too. And a big part of Dead Rising 1 and 2 was gathering survivors and escorting them to a safe house where you get experience. And that was very hectic too. The AI was pretty shitty on the survivors, although it did get better in the second game. But I kind of miss that. In this game, there is none of that. You can find survivors, and they can go to your safe houses all around the map, but they go there on their own. You don't have to escort them or anything like that. And the AI is so good in this game on their survivors. They'll actually take out zombies, and they won't really die. So I kind of almost missed the brain dead AI of the survivors from the first two games. And that was another thing. These survivors, you're always going to know where they are. The only time you might explore the map, and you might find a survivor that needs help, and you have to clear out some zombies around them, and you'll gain experience once you've done that, and then the survivor will be just like, okay, thanks for the help, and then that's it. That's the quest. You get some experience, and you can find those randomly. They'll randomly generate around the map, but that's about it. It's just another thing with Dead Rising 1 and 2, you could find really cool weapons if you just explored. I remember Dead Rising 1, there was an awning in one of the beginning areas that you could jump to, and it was hard to find, but there was a machine gun on top of it. And finding that machine gun was awesome. You were just like, yes. So every time you do a new playthrough, you'd always go for that machine gun, and you'd have to memorize weapon locations. If you wanted to fight a certain boss, you'd have to memorize where the best weapons were, and you had to kind of time out. Oh, okay, at this time I'm gonna get this weapon, and then go to this psychopath and kill him, and then do this at this time. I mean, this sounds like something that might not be fun to some people, but I really enjoyed it in the first two games, and Dead Rising 3 doesn't have any of that, unfortunately. So yeah, but the change wasn't as bad as the environment itself, which I think is the biggest downfall of Dead Rising 3 overall. The first two games took place in malls, and the second game had a pretty big mall. But they were small environments that allowed you to memorize them. You could memorize these environments, and they had a sense of character to them. You could easily memorize the different shops and like areas of the mall. Los Perdidos is a massive city split up into 4 different sections with highways kind of connecting each area, and you cannot possibly memorize this map. It's basically impossible. It's huge, for a Dead Rising game at least. So it's good in some ways in the sense that, yeah, more zombies can fit on screen now, and there's a bunch of different stories you can find, and like you can go into houses now and things like that, but like it's just annoying to navigate, and it's impossible to memorize things, and I think it's so big, that's why they decided to get rid of like the characters being at random locations, because it's just, you can't get this map in your head. You're always going to have to look at the main map to see where you're supposed to be going, and they've got waypoints for you too that you can activate. But safe houses do make a return in this game, but you just kind of destroy all zombies in a safe house, and then you get like a weapons locker that you can like get any weapon from, and then you can like be able to save your game. That's another thing Dead Rising 1 and 2 had. You could save your game only at certain places, and that made the game quite a bit more hectic as well. This game in story mode you can save anywhere, there's auto saves. So the safe houses are kind of boring in this game, and the weapons lockers make this game really easy, because any weapon or item you find throughout the city, it automatically goes to the locker, and you can spawn that item from the locker. And if this game has the downloadable content, the PC version has the downloadable content that the Xbox One version had, and you get that right from the start, which includes really overpowered combo weapons. So you can get those right in the beginning of the game, and it just makes it so easy. Like, there's so many design decisions in this game that make it just way too easy, unfortunately. But like I was talking about before, like the map is so huge, and that wouldn't be so bad, I guess, if there weren't blockades everywhere. This is one of the most annoying things about the game to me. It's done for, I guess, a story reason, but it doesn't make it any less annoying. Basically, when you're traveling by vehicle through the city, and you have to have you're always looking for vehicles when you need to get to a certain place, and there's so many times in this game where you have to go from one end of the city to the other, and it's annoying. Because there's blockades everywhere. You'd think it'd be like a straight shot from one part of the city to the other, but you'll be driving along, and then all of a sudden there's a giant blockade in your way, and you have to find a way to get around it. And they always block your progress, and it makes traversal so fucking irritating. Like, I cannot, like, there were so many times where I was trying to do a main quest, and I was just like, fuck. Like, every time you'd run into these blockades, you were just like, fuck, I just want to get to this main quest. Like, why are they here? It really makes exploring a pain in the ass, and that's easily my biggest complaint with this game. And then of course, like, the environment itself, Los Perdidos, is just very brown. Like, this was a complaint that many people had when they first showed off the game. The environment's just very brown and gray and just boring to look at. Like, the environments in Dead Rising 1 and 2 were very colorful and vibrant and had character to them. Los Perdidos is just fucking boring. So, I mean, yeah, like, the setting itself is easily my biggest complaint with the game. Other than that, I mean, like I said before, making combo weapons, combo vehicles are in this game, leveling up your character. I actually forgot about to mention that. This game, there's no more auto level ups. Like, you get like attribute points that you can put into different skills and abilities. I actually liked that change. Some people might not like it, because again, it's one of those things that makes it easier, depending on what you put your points into. But I did actually prefer that, to have some customization there with your character. The level cap is, I think, 50, and then you can keep getting more attribute points from there. So I liked putting skill, upgrading my skills. That was really fun. That's one of the changes I did like. And like I said before, killing zombies is really fun. It's a fun game to mess around with, and co-op is extremely fun. I loved the co-op mode. It was really fun playing through the storyline with my brother. But yeah, I mean, I guess that covers it with gameplay. It's a hard game to talk about because, especially if you haven't played the first and second game, because it's like if you haven't played the series, you might look at the game and think it's a game where you just roam around killing zombies for fun. But the structure in the first two games was really unique. But it's kind of a shame that this game got rid of that. It almost seems like they were trying to appeal to like a mass audience with this game, and I don't think it quite worked. There are some good ideas here. Like I said, like the leveling up system, being able to, make your combo weapons anywhere on the map. The inventory system's improved. The game feels a bit better. Movement feels better. Aiming feels better. The bosses, I think, are generally better. Although, like, the last chapter's final boss is annoying. But yeah, and the endings are really easy to get in this game, too, with the exception of one. One of the endings I don't know how you would ever figure out how to get it without looking at a walkthrough. The endings were really tough to get in Dead Rising 1, and even some of them in Dead Rising 2, and in this game it's easy to get the endings. And the best ending in this game, you're going to be getting at your first playthrough. It's so easy to get. You just follow the directions and what the game tells you to do. Dead Rising 1, getting that final ending was hard. Like, I had to be like max level before I could even get to that point. This game, like leveling up doesn't really matter. I was level 30 or whatever when I beat the game, and I felt overpowered the entire time. But yeah, that's gameplay. Where most of the game is. I guess I haven't talked about visuals or audio. Visuals, I think it's a good looking game, at least when you put it on high settings and stuff. Like, character models look good. It's like the main thing is how impressive it is to see so many zombies on screen. I mean, the zombie character models aren't special. The environment, like I said before, is boring, and there's some like bad textures here and there. But I don't know. I think it's a pretty good looking game. Granted, I am playing on high settings. So I don't know how the Xbox One version looks, but yeah. Audio wise, the soundtrack I like. It's very like synth heavy. Which I kind of liked. It creates like a very it kind of goes along with the darker feel of this game compared to the first two. But yeah, I like the soundtrack. The voice acting is okay, I guess. I don't know. It's standard voice acting. Sound effects are great though. I love the sound effects, just ripping apart the zombies. But yeah, that's about it. I've actually talked quite a bit longer than I expected to on this game, and I'm sure a lot of it sounds pretty confusing. You really have to look at the game and see gameplay and kind of understand how it works to see if it would be for you, because it is probably a game that if you want to play it just to kill zombies, it does get boring pretty quick. It can get boring pretty quick, and it lacks a lot of what I loved about the first two Dead Rising games. I mean, killing zombies was fun in those games, but what kept me coming back is trying to get to the max level and seeing all the endings and seeing all the content the game had. In this game, you can see it all very fast. I just have to get to the max level and I'm pretty much done. But yeah, that's Dead Rising 3. If it appeals to you, I definitely say check it out. Especially if you can get it for like $40 around there. I got it for $30 on like greenmangaming.com. But the Xbox One version should be like $40 or something by now. But yeah, recommended. Though if you haven't played any Dead Rising games, play the first two. They're much better. Then maybe play this. If you really enjoyed the first two, I think you'll enjoy this. Unless the changes I mentioned bother you, then maybe not. But yeah, I had a good time with it. I certainly don't regret purchasing it. It's a bit disappointing, I think. Although I mean, you could tell they went for like a bigger is better kind of philosophy with this game, and I don't think it really works for the Dead Rising games. At least for what I enjoy out of them. So yeah, I don't know what they're going to do with Dead Rising 4. I don't know where they can really go from here without disappointing the hardcore fans. But yeah, that's enough. I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.